Hello YouTube, Sidekick here in my trusty AV8B Harrier, headed out to the range to do some pop-up testing. Today we're going to look at another method of planning a pop-up attack. This is probably the simplest one we've done. I call it the aim-off method. Let's head to the mission editor and take a look at how it's done. Okay, here we are in the mission editor. I've done a few pop-up planning videos. They're all different, but they all kind of start the same way. The first thing that we need to do is calculate a couple of distances. First of all, we need to know the distance that we want to be when we start our dive in, and then we also need to know the distance from that roll-in point where we want to start our pop-up, and that's just a function of the dive angle into the target and the climb angle up to the pop-up. So I did up a spreadsheet where we can calculate those for different kinds of angles. So once we have established what distances we need, then actually what we do is we go into the mission editor and we use a couple of zones. First thing we do is we put a zone down that's on the target, whose radius is the dive-in distance. And that basically means that if we are anywhere on the circumference of this circle, we're at the right spot to dive in on the target. Second thing we do is put down another zone where we put the center of that zone on the edge of the first zone. And that means now that the circumference of this zone is a place where if we pop up at any point on the circumference of that zone, aimed at the center, then we will arrive at the roll-in point at the right altitude. If you want to know a little bit more about that, you can go ahead and go back and watch the other videos. All of those other videos, we have basically used the mission editor as the planning tool to figure out exactly what our cues are going to be for when we pop up and when we roll in. Now, the method we're going to use today doesn't require us to know anything about the target prior to the mission. We're going to do all of this in flight. The only thing we do need to know is we need to have the target designated, and we need to be using an aircraft that measures the distance to the target. So that's easy if we're using a fairly modern aircraft with a HUD. We probably could do it with the A4. We would have to put the target coordinates into the nav computer, so that might mean knowing the target coordinates pre-flight. So today we're just going to do it in the Harrier, and we're just going to do it with a target that is designated as a waypoint. So we do know it before we take off, but we could it could be a target that we designated in flight. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly straight at the target. At some predetermined distance from the target, we are going to aim off. So we're just going to change our course to the right. Could do it to the left, but we're going to do it to the right. We change our course to the right by a set amount. Then we fly a set distance, at which point we pop up. And if we pop up at the right angle and we pop up at the right time, we will arrive at the roll-in point and we will roll in on the target. So the only thing we need to do is to figure out exactly how to know when to aim off and how to know when to pop up. It turns out that the only pieces of information we need to know to calculate this are the same ones we've already used: the pop-up altitude, the climb angle, the dive angle, and the only other thing we need to know is actually the aim off angle. So how far off track are we going to aim when we do our setup? Now, of course, this is not rocket science. And if you check around, you can probably find some pamphlets that actually have these numbers for some set aim off attack profiles. And of course, normally in any Air Force, there are probably some prescribed attack profiles. And in fact, I've actually seen in some videos people who actually have access to sort of a kneeboard card that actually has all of this data on it. So there are approved ways of doing this, but because I am not a military pilot, I am a physicist, I just wanted to figure out how to do it in any way that I wanted to. So it turns out it's not very difficult to work out the math. I won't bore you with it here, although if anybody wants to take a look at it in more detail, just give me a call on Discord. At any rate, so I added to my spreadsheet, and now in addition to having the pull up and dive in distances, we also have two distances associated with an aim off angle. The first is the aim off distance. So this is the distance that when the HUD counts down to this distance, we will aim off the set amount. Then the second number is the pull-up distance, and when the HUD distance to target counts down to this number, that is when we will initiate the pull-up. Now, because I like the idea of a kneeboard card, I made my own, and that's available if you want to contact me on Discord as well in handy-dandy PDF format. But basically, on this card, I came up with 3 different profiles that I might want to try. So we're going to go out in the Harrier and give it a try and see if we can make this work. Okay, here we are heading down the coast, headed towards the target area. Let's look at the pop-up card. Let's use the medium profile this time. So we're going to angle off at 20 degrees. We're going to climb out at 35 degrees. We expect to dive in at 25 degrees. We're going to have to start our aim-off turn at 8.3 nautical miles, and then we're going to pull up at 3.7. Okay, so we notice that we are headed at the target at about 352 degrees, so we're going to have to turn to about 12 degrees. Here we go. Turning to 12 degrees. Didn't quite make it. More. There we go. More like 12 degrees. Make the count down to 3.7. And we just need to pull up at 35. I usually find in the pull-up attacks that I start my roll in, I just usually start at about 2,000 feet, maybe a little bit more than that below the top. That seems to work out pretty well rather than trying to time it any more precisely than that. We're coming down to 3.7. Start a little bit early to make sure we're actually climbing at 3.7. Gotta keep pulling until we get to 35. Okay, we're on climb. Right about there. Climbing, and we're climbing. Let's take a look. There's the target. Look back. We're going to wait till just a little bit longer before we start the roll in. Right about there. Rolling in. Lift vector to target. Pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. Not really looking at my dive angle at this point. I'm just assuming it's going to work out right. Slid past it. Oh, need to get in air to ground mode so we get a pipper. Okay. Good. Get Pipper to come up to the target. And release. Okay, that was fairly straightforward. Not too sporty. It was supposed to be a 25-degree dive angle. I think we were a little bit more than that, but not a lot more. And I, at least for me, I don't think the point of the pop-up attack is to be absolutely perfect on the numbers. It's really just, again, to give you a basic procedure. When you want to, when you know where the target is and you want to do a roll and attack, you can pick whatever profile works for you. Yeah, there we go. A little between 25 and 30 degrees dive angle. Not bad accuracy. So that seemed to work out fairly well. That was the medium column on my pop-up card. Although I will point out, if you like, give me a call. I'll happily share the spreadsheet I use. You can make your own pop-up card with whatever set of parameters you want. Anyways, let's try another one of the profiles that I had on the card there. Let's come in again. This time, let's try the long profile. So this one's going to be a fairly shallow dive in with lots of time to line up. This would probably be a good profile if you wanted to drop bombs in auto mode, or even using, like if you were actually dropping laser guided bombs, you could probably even use a profile like this to actually drop GBUs. So we're going to roll in here. We're going to aim off 20 degrees. We're going to do that at 10.6 nautical miles. At 4.1 nautical miles, we are going to pull up at 35 degrees. And we're going to roll in on the target as we're coming up on 8,000 feet, so probably as we're passing through 6. And we're going to expect a dive angle of something around 20 degrees. So we are rolling out here. We're already just 11 miles from the target, so it's almost time to actually offset. Offset 20 degrees. Right on 20 degrees this time. A little bit better, a little bit more. There we go. Practice that. Now it's a fairly long run in, 4.1 nautical miles. Let's designate the target, which we hadn't done. And now it's just a matter of staying low, staying on that approach line until we get down to around 4 nautical miles. We're going to pull up at 35, same as last time. But obviously we're going to be a lot farther from the target when we roll in. There is 6 nautical miles. Start to pull up a little bit before the 4, obviously. Just make sure we're pulling up at 4. 5 nautical miles. And up we go. Alright, stop it at 35. Stop it at 35. That's pretty good. Use level. 4,000 feet. 5,000. Coming up on 6. Start the roll in. That target's way off the nose this time, but the same procedure. We're just lift vector down to it. Oops, past it. Practice those roll-ins. The Harrier. Go. And beyond the target, so we get a nice high drop. Waiting for the cross to come up, and the bombs are gone. Let's pull off and go wait for our results in the target impact tracking script. Okay, so that was a fairly easy profile. Probably not one you want to use in a heavily defended area. It's a pretty long and shallow dive. But as I said, it might be a good one to use if you actually want to try to use auto mode, or again, if you're actually laser designating the target. That might work. Okay, so we have one more profile to try. I left it to the last because it is the sportiest of the bunch. So there you see the results. So we were a little bit less than the targeted 20-degree dive angle, but not much. So I think that profile works pretty well as well. So as I said, the next profile is the sportiest of the bunch because things happen pretty quickly. So let's just wind the clock forward here. So we're going to use the short pop-up profile, so that means we're going to roll 30 degrees off, and we're going to pop up, and we're going to do that at 4.7. We're going to pop up at 3.3. We're going to pull up at 35, and we're going to expect to dive in at 35. So things happen pretty quickly in this profile. This is certainly one that will give you the least exposure, though, if you're worried about defenses around the target. So we're just going to get ourselves lined up on the target. And into 4.7. It's a pretty 30 degrees is a bit more of an aggressive turn away. Not sure what the best philosophy is about a turn away. Just decided I'd try 30, see what it looks like. There we go, turning 30 degrees off. By the time we roll out, we're almost immediately at 3.3. So we're already going to start to pop up. Make sure we pull nice and hard, get to 35. Hold it there, waiting for that 8,000 feet or so. We can see the target coming by. We're a lot closer to the target this time. Waiting for us to build the altitude. Now we could probably roll in lower if we wanted to. I'm just doing this to try and actually test the system, but I think once you're actually in the target area, you would probably do whatever works for you. Okay, trying to get to the target. It's pretty sporty. Not a lot of time to be sorting yourself out here, but we are going to manage to get the bombs on the target. So as I said, that's pretty sporty, but I think it worked out pretty well. We got pretty much the dive angle we were looking for, I think. Let's see what the target impact tracking script has to say. Anyways, that's another method of doing pop-up planning, doing it on the fly. Once again, all you need to know is the actual location of the target, and then you have to choose your climb angle, your dive angle, and your pop-up aim off, but that's all you need to do a pop-up attack. Okay, survey says not our most accurate result, but we did hit the dive angle that we were looking for. So I'd say this method of planning a pop-up attack definitely works. If you want to know a little bit more about the math behind the calculations, or if you want a copy of the spreadsheet so you can make your own pop-up card, or if you want the pop-up card that I've been using, feel free to come to the Discord channel and say hello and join the discussion. For now, this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.